This tank top is quick and easy to do using Tunisian crochet mesh stitch and single crochet back loop only rib for the neck, armholes and bottom of the garment. The combination of mesh stitch and back loop only rib makes the garment nice and stretchy, so it is quite forgiving for different sizes. And I'll demonstrate how to do it in this step-by-step video that I've divided into chapters to make it easier to navigate. I've made this tank top for a small adult female, but the pattern can be easily scaled up or down to fit any size. This is the yarn, it is King Cole Firefly. It creates a really beautiful sheen and colour, and it is Aran weight. For this tank top I used 2 balls, but 3 balls would be sufficient for most eventualities. So I used a 7mm 14-inch long Tunisian crochet hook, a 5mm conventional crochet hook for the ribs, a wide-eyed needle for sewing in loose ends, a tape measure, pair of scissors, and last but not least, stitch markers, essential. I'm now creating a Tunisian crochet foundation row. The first thing to do is to make a slip knot, and in this case I'm chaining 59 for a small adult size tank top, and it is essential that an odd number of stitches is used because I'm doing the Tunisian crochet mesh stitch. This chain of 59 will create a chain 17 inches long, perfect for a tank top 17 inches wide. So I'm making a Tunisian crochet foundation row the easy way, and the link to the video about how to do this is above. All the loops are on the hook now, so it is essential to check that there are 59 loops. This is the return pass, and as always I like to mark the end of the row with a stitch marker to avoid confusion where the last stitch of the forward pass goes and to keep the edge neat. And here is the completed Tunisian crochet foundation row. The fabric for this tank top is made using the Tunisian crochet mesh stitch that is quick and easy to do. With one loop on the hook, yarn over, miss the second vertical bar and insert the hook behind the third vertical bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, so there will be now 3 loops on the hook. Now yarn over, miss the next vertical bar, insert the hook behind the vertical bar after that, yarn over and pull up a loop. And keep going with forward passes and return passes until the fabric is of the required length. The link to the video about how to do the mesh stitch is above. Now the main body of the tank top looks long enough. I'm just completing the return pass. I have done 29 rows and the panel measures 13 inches long. And the front and back panels will be identical until it is time to shape the neck at the front and back. So now it is time to shape the armholes by decreasing the stitch count at the sides of both front and back panels. This is achieved in the forward pass by slip stitching the first 2 stitches, so insert the hook behind the vertical bar, yarn over and pull through both loops, so that is 2 slip stitches. Now do the Tunisian crochet mesh stitch to the end of the row. So at the end of the forward pass, the stitch count will have been reduced from 59 to 55, and for that I will need to miss the last 2 stitches of the forward pass. And it is essential to check that the reduction has been done properly by checking the number of loops on the hook, and as I said, there should be 55. That's 59 minus 2 minus 2. So with the stitch count correct, I'm now going to do a return pass, and as always I'm going to mark the end of the row with a stitch marker. Just completing the return pass from the first reduction, and the next forward pass will be the same as the previous one by slip stitching into the next 2 stitches. Then continuing with the mesh stitch, and again miss the last 2 stitches of the row. The stitch count should now be 51, that's 55 minus 2 minus 2. With the stitch count correct, now do a normal return pass, again marking the end of the row with the stitch marker. So I'm just approaching the end of the return pass. The next forward pass is going to be the third and final reduction, so slip stitch into the first 2 stitches as before. Then continue with mesh stitch, missing the last 2 stitches of the forward pass, bringing the total number of stitches to 47. The reduction for the armholes is now complete, so continue with a normal return pass. And here you can see a nicely shaped reduction for the armhole. So now I am building the front panel with normal mesh stitch with no reductions, so it is 6 rows of 47 stitches. This is the forward pass with no reductions completed, and you can see the appearance of the reduction on the other side, a bit more stepped, but this will disappear when the ribbing is added. So continue with return passes and forward passes for 6 rows, and the length from top to bottom will be around 18 inches. So this is the front panel before the neck shaping, and at this stage the appearance of the panel will be identical to that of the back panel. The only difference being is that there will be 2 extra rows at the back before shaping for the neck. width of the top is 14 inches, and that is 47 stitches. The next stage is to shape the front panel for the neck, and this will have a deeper scoop than the neck at the back. A good idea is to mark the center point of the top of the front panel, and that is 24 stitches in, so there will be 23 stitches either side of the center stitch. In order to create the scoop for the front panel for the neck, I'm going to decrease the stitches towards the middle over 4 rows. To do this, the forward pass for the first reduction will be mesh stitch for 21 stitches, remember each loop represents 1 stitch, and when there are 21 loops on the hook, it is time to do the return pass. The next forward pass will reduce by 2 to 19 stitches, so when there are 19 loops on the hook, it is time to do the return pass. And the next forward pass will reduce another 2 to 17 stitches. So continue with mesh stitch until there are 17 loops on the hook. And then do a normal return pass. The fourth forward pass of the neck shaping reduces by another 2 stitches to 15, so continue with mesh stitch until there are 15 loops on the hook. And you can see that the right side of the front panel shows a nicely scooped neckline. So I'm now going to do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass. And this is the right side of the front panel complete. The top of it measures 4 inches across. So The other side will be a mirror image. Now the piece of yarn on the right side can be cut and secured, and it is a good idea to leave a long enough tail to slip stitch the top to the back panel. Now it is time to create the scoop on the left side of the front panel, and for this we start the forward pass 3 stitches from the center stitch marked by the stitch marker. So this forward pass will be 21 stitches of mesh stitch as on the other side. The last stitch into the marked space at the end of the row. So there will then be 21 loops on the hook. And now a normal return pass. This is the end of the return pass, and the next forward pass we need to lose 2 stitches, and this is done by slip stitching into the first 2 stitches. And then continue with mesh stitch until the end of the row. When there should be 19 loops on the hook. Now chain 1 and mark the space at the end of the row, and continue with a normal return pass until there is just 1 loop left on the hook. Now slip stitch into the first 2 stitches of the forward pass to reduce the number of stitches to 17. Then continue with Tunisian crochet mesh stitch until the end of the row. With the last stitch into the marked space, there should now be 17 loops on the hook. Chain 1, mark the space at the end of the row, and do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass. Until there is 1 loop left on the hook. I need to lose 2 more stitches to bring the stitch count down to 15, so I'm slip stitching into the first 2 stitches, and then continuing the forward pass with normal Tunisian crochet mesh stitch until I reach the marked space at the end of the row. So this is the last stitch. Now there will be 15 loops on the hook and the reduction is complete. And you can see that the front of the neck is nicely shaped with a nice scoop. So now for a normal Tunisian crochet return pass to finish off the left side of the top on the front. There is now one loop left on the hook, so the return pass is complete and the width of the neck is approximately 8 inches. So now the yarn can be cut and secured, and as with the other side, I recommend leaving a long tail so that it can be used for slip stitching the front and back panels together. This is what the front panel looks like with shaped neck and shaped armholes. So this is the back panel, and it is identical to the front panel apart from 2 extra rows because the scoop for the neck is shallower. So at the front the reductions for the neck were carried out over 4 rows. For the back panel the reductions will be carried out over 2 rows. As with the front, identify the middle stitch, and this is 24 stitches in, so there are 23 stitches on either side. So once the centre stitch has been marked, the forward pass can be started, and that is 17 stitches of Tunisian crochet mesh stitch. And when there are 17 loops on the hook, do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass, chaining 1, marking the space at the end of the row. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, all the way along the row to the end when there will be 1 loop left on the hook. The next forward pass is the only other forward pass, and this is 15 stitches of Tunisian crochet mesh stitch. And when there are 15 loops on the hook, do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass. And here you can see the nice shallow scoop for the back of the tank top. Now the yarn can be cut, and again it's worth keeping a long tail. The forward pass on the other side is 17 stitches, and this is 6 stitches from the central marker. And that is 17 stitches of Tunisian crochet mesh stitch until a marked space at the end of the row. Check the number of loops on the hook, that should be 17, chain 1, mark the space at the end of the row, then do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass until there is 1 loop left on the hook. The next forward pass is to reduce the stitch count from 17 to 15, so this is going to be achieved by doing slip stitches into the next 2 stitches. That's the first slip stitch, and this is the next slip stitch. And now for Tunisian crochet mesh stitch all the way along the row to the marked space at the end of the row. Again, check the number of loops on the hook, there should be 15. And now for a normal Tunisian crochet return pass, and then the yarn can be cut and secured. The back panel is now complete. So now the tank top front and back panels need to be attached together. So the first thing to do is to turn the panels inside out so that the fronts of the panels for front and back are facing each other. I always slip stitch the shoulders together first so the neck can be checked for size. And I've switched to a 5mm ordinary crochet hook for slip stitching. There is of course no reason why the panels cannot be sewn together as an alternative to slip stitch. That is one side of the top of the tank top slip stitched together. Now the other side needs slip stitching, and then the sides can be slip stitched up to the armholes. Once the front and back panels are slip stitched or sewn together, the remaining thing to do is to create the ribs for the neck, armholes and the bottom of the tank top. I'm now creating a back loop only single crochet rib for the neck. So with the yarn attached to a stitch around the neck, I'm now chaining 4. The 4th chain is a turning chain for a rib 3 stitches deep. So I'm now doing single crochets into the 3 chains below the turning chain. Once the bottom of the rib has been reached, the next thing to do is a slip stitch into the next 2 stitches on the neck, and then continue with back loop only single crochet rib stitch all around the neck until the edges of the rib meet, when they can be slip stitched together. This is what the rib around the neck looks like. This is the rib around the armholes, again 3 stitches deep. And this is the rib around the bottom of the tank top. This is 5 stitches deep. So this is the completed tank top, and I have a few top tips. Number 1, check the stitch counts frequently. Number 2, make very good use of stitch markers. They really help to navigate the project. Number 3, always secure loose ends. If not, stitches may come undone and seams may start to unravel. Number 4, keep stepping back to look at the project as an overview. And finally, enjoy having a project on the go. It took me around about a week, but it could easily be done in a matter of days.